Alright, so this video is going to be helpful for anyone who's still struggling with understanding the necklace. I'm going to go through and explain some things and add some annotations. If you are comfortable with the story and you know what you're doing, feel free to sign off and go get started. But just a reminder that while you read, you need to have 2 annotations per page, and you're looking specifically for the 3 different types of irony and symbolism. So, some background information really quick. The necklace takes place in France in the late 1800s, so this isn't Middletown present day, and that's why some of the things that the characters do and say might seem a little dated. Alright, so we start off with, she was one of those pretty charming young women who were born as if by an error of fate into a petty official's family. She had no dowry, no hopes, not the slightest chance of being appreciated, understood, loved, and married by a rich and distinguished man. So she slipped into marriage with a minor civil servant at the Ministry of Education. So our main character here, we don't know her name yet, but we know that she's pretty. We know that she comes from a poor family. We know that she wants to marry rich. But she ends up marrying a man from the education department who would be considered more like middle class. So marries a man who is middle class. Unable to afford jewelry, she dressed simply, but she was as wretched as a déclassée, for women have neither caste nor breeding. In them beauty, grace, and charm replace pride of birth. Innate refinement, instinctive elegance, and suppleness of wit give them their place on the only scale that counts, and these qualities make humble girls the peers of the grandest ladies. She suffered constantly, feeling that all the attributes of a gracious life, every luxury should rightly have been hers. So we can characterize her as sort of selfish, even greedy. She believes that, you know, the world owes her everything just because she is who she is. The poverty of her rooms, the shabby walls, the worn furniture, the ugly upholstery caused her pain. All of these things that another woman of her class would not have even noticed tormented her and made her angry. So that's describing her house, her furniture, the decoration she has. So she doesn't like what she has. But then the author says that all things that another woman of her class would not have even noticed. So the author's telling us that another middle class woman would have been happy with what she has, but our main character, like I said, she's kind of greedy, selfish, snobby. What she has isn't good enough for her, so much so that it causes her pain, makes her angry. So these things tormented her and made her angry. The very sight of the little Breton girl who cleaned for her awoke rueful thoughts and the wildest dreams in her mind. So this is where we're going to start looking at irony. This is going to be a good example here of situational irony. So we would expect somebody who's middle class not to have a servant. But here she is, you know, the author's telling us that she feels so poor, so unworthy, she wants and wants and wants, but here she is having, you know, clearly enough money to have somebody clean up after her. So that's situational irony. That's the opposite of what we would expect. She dreamed of thick, carpeted reception rooms with oriental hangings, lighted by tall bronze torches, and with 2 huge footmen in knee breeches, made drowsy by the heat from the stove, asleep in wide armchairs. She dreamed of great drawing rooms, upholstered in old silks, with fragile little tables holding priceless knickknacks, and of enchanting little sitting rooms redolent of perfume, designed for tea-time chats with intimate friends, famous, sought-after men whose attention all women longed for. So here the author's describing the type of house that she does want. She wants a mansion. She wants a beautiful, perfect house of huge rooms with expensive decorations. And then the author also tells us the type of friends she wants. She wants famous friends, and she wants good-looking men, and men that other people desire. So she doesn't want just like, your average friend. She wants people who are going to get her attention. When she sat down to dinner at her round table with its 3-day-old cloth and watched her husband opposite her lift the lid of the soup tureen and exclaim delightedly, "Ah, a good homemade beef stew. There's nothing better." She would visualize elegant dinners with gleaming silver amid tapestried walls peopled by knights and ladies and exotic birds in a fairy forest. She would think of exquisite dishes served on gorgeous china, and of gallantries whispered and received with sphinx-like smiles, while eating the pink flesh of trout or wings of grouse. So here the author's telling us that she isn't happy with just eating beef stew. She wants expensive dinners. With expensive food and fancy friends. So, knights and ladies. She wants to be eating trout and grouse, which is a type of bird, not just beef stew. She had no proper wardrobe, no jewels, nothing, and those were the only thing that she loved. She felt she was made for them. She would have so loved to charm, to be envied, to be admired and sought after. So she wants people to be jealous of her. She doesn't want things just to have things. She cares about what other people think. So again, we can start characterizing her based on her thoughts and, her dreams, that she's a rather selfish person. She had a rich friend, a schoolmate from the convent she had attended, but she didn't like to visit her because it always made her so miserable when she got home again. She would weep for whole days at a time from sorrow, regret, despair, and distress. Again, we have situational irony here. We, as an audience, reasonably would expect somebody who visited a childhood friend to be happy about it, to be excited and look forward to that. But she has this friend she's known for her whole life, and she's upset by that. So the opposite of what we expect is occurring. We have situational irony. Then, one evening, her husband arrived home looking triumphant and waving a large envelope. "There," he said, "there's something for you." She tore it open eagerly and took out a printed card which said, "The Minister of Education and Madame Ramponneau request the pleasure and company of Mr. and Mrs. Loisel at an evening reception at the Ministry on Monday, January 18th. So this is an invite to a fancy government party. So we would reasonably predict or expect here for our main character to be excited by this, because she so desperately wants wealth and fame and riches. We would expect that she would be happy to have an invitation to this party. But instead of being delighted, as her husband had hoped, she tossed the invitation on the table and muttered, annoyed, "What do you expect me to do with that?" "Why, I thought you'd be pleased, dear. You never go out, and this would be an occasion for you, a great one. I had a lot of trouble getting it. Everyone wants an invitation. They're in great demand, and there are only a few reserved for employees. All the officials will be there." So again, we have irony, and again, it's situational irony. Like I said, the audience was reasonably expect that she would be happy about this, but she's not. She looked at him irritated and said impatiently, "I haven't a thing to wear. How could I go?" It had never even occurred to him. He stammered, "But what about the dress you wear to the theater? I think it's lovely." He fell silent, amazed and bewildered to see that his wife was crying. 2 big tears escaped from the corner of her eyes and rolled slowly toward the corners of her mouth. He mumbled, "What is it? What is it?" But with great effort she had overcome her misery, and now she answered him calmly, wiping her tear-damp cheeks. "It's nothing. It's just that I have no evening dress, and so I can't go to the party. Give the invitation to one of your colleagues whose wife will be better dressed than I would be." And then this is the last type of irony I'm going to point out. When a character says something but they mean the opposite, that's verbal irony. She is clearly upset. So when she says it's nothing, that's the opposite of what she means. She's very upset. So that is an example of verbal irony. At this point, you should know enough about the characters and the setting, what our main character is like and what she wants, to be able to understand the rest of the story. So, as I said at the beginning here, your job is to continue to look for verbal, dramatic, and situational irony, as well as symbolism. You need 2 annotations per page. If you look at mine, I have way more than 2. So this should not be something that is difficult for you. You want your paper to look like mine. You will be able to use this with the timed constructed response that we have next week. So the more you write down, the better. If you have any questions, write them down and you can ask me tomorrow. Otherwise, have a good day.